Susan Rice, former Democratic official and Netflix board member, said on Preet Bharara's podcast that companies supporting Trump may face consequences if Democrats regain power in Washington. Rice served on Netflix board from 2018 to 2020 and was reappointed in 2023. US President Donald Trump promptly urged Netflix to remove former Democratic National Security official Susan Rice from its board or face consequences. This as the company seeks to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery and signals Trump's renewed involvement in the competition between Netflix and Paramount Skydance for ownership of the iconic Hollywood studio after previously stating he would not participate. Both proposed acquisitions remain subject to federal regulatory approval. Hello, this is Global Business Insights, where we look at the world from a business perspective and bring you news, views, and analysis that helps to bring you up to date on the context. Many have argued that the peculiarly aggressive White House requires a different, if not idiosyncratic, response by individuals, especially where they hold opposing political views. The midterms would be a referendum on the present White House leadership, as I focus more on if the Netflix board member helped the cause of the company in her statement. Board directors are expected to act honestly, competently, and acting as a fiduciary for shareholders. The UK Companies Act 2006 spells out a code of directors' duties. Netflix is not a UK company, but the principles remain relevant. One of the duties focus on obligations to promote the success of the company for the benefit of the company as a whole. Another emphasizes avoiding putting themselves in a position where their personal interests conflict with their duties as a director. A political interest can be seen as a private interest. It can also be interpreted as a view held in the long-term interest of shareholders. Political interest can produce interventions and approvals of projects that favor one politically aligned party at the expense of another. How should board members conduct themselves when already entrenched in a political view? What can they say publicly and what should they not say? Board members have been recusing themselves from decisions where they can be perceived as aligned in one way or the other due to a personal interest. Also, it depends on the scale of the potential conflict. Is it mild, or will it lead to extensive favors done to a political group using assets of the public company? An unusual feature in the present US administration is the very direct courtship of the private sector, already perceived as a weaponization of its executive powers to coerce support that can be deemed political, a situation that needs correction when a new government comes into power. But the case of Netflix is also unique, as it is in the middle of expecting a decision of a key market transaction that is now more laced with political undertones. Warner Brothers has restarted talks with Paramount this week, giving David Ellison's media group until this week to make its best and final bid to top Netflix agreed $83 billion takeover or end its pursuit of the studio. Meanwhile, Republican influencer Laura Loomer is warning that attention should be given to Mrs. Rice's statements, which threatens half of the country with weaponized government and political retribution for choosing who they wanted to vote for as president, adding in her claims that Netflix acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery would benefit democratic causes. Netflix did not immediately respond to a request for comment. According to accepted principles, breach of trust can be construed if a director has acted while in a position of conflict of interest, even if there is no evidence that such actions were biased or unfair or influenced by personal interest. But America is different. Elon Musk, the world's wealthiest man, has presented himself as the strong voice of the administration despite his board role and interests in many public companies. Should Susan Rice's dreams come true, a Democrat-led government could probably find cause to prosecute Elon for a variety of misdemeanors. When a flood of wrongs are at play, many naturally select which case promotes best their interest. And I don't propose that extensive forays of the private sector in pushing political narratives are in any way helpful. But Netflix will not be helped by Susan Rice's recent statement, even in the long-term possibility of a transfer of power to the left. The present climate of intense divisions, distrust, misinformation, and geopolitical rifts, identified by the World Economic Forum Risk Report as a leading risk factor, implies some reticence in public speech of corporate directors. According to World Economic Forum Risk Report 2026, the rising social disaffection or polarization and turbulence driven by inequality and rising ideological divide is feeding misinformation and fears. Netflix has not commented on the call to remove Rice and is unlikely to do so, perhaps confirming to some that its leanings have for a long time favored Democrats, just as Musk companies align with Republicans. But who will believe that the White House, who should have been silent on all this, is acting not in vengeance or to protect its political interest? Let me summarize by concluding that public statements that further political interest are not helpful in most cases for boards and will constitute breach of trust. The long-term view is always colored by the political tint on the lens through which one is looking. Media and political platforms seem to love the toxicity and enjoy weaponizing the divides to harvest more voters in tighter silos of thinking. The corporate board should, as much as possible, stay out of the brewing battles and present neutrality, even if the most influential shareholders have strong political alignments. Today, Paramount Skydance is expected to make its best and final offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Warner's board remains committed to Netflix, but shareholders are split over which suitor has a better chance at regulatory approval. Paramount, as the smaller buyer, may benefit from its owner's ties to President Trump, though European and British regulators must also approve. Netflix claims it would not control the TV sector post-merger. The next step is Warner's shareholders vote on March 20th. The board must act in the best interest of its shareholder long-term interests. Netflix should not drop Susan Rice, but should at the minimum issue a statement resolving the potential conflict by affirming its political neutrality. The White House should show it can walk the high ground by approving the decision of the Warner Brothers board, even if they accept the Netflix bid, assuming they see no clear market or consumer impact, creating grounds to oppose it. The probability of these recommended actions remain low in an era where rising disaffection and conflict has become a new normal. To other stories, over the weekend, countries discussed how to respond to the US Supreme Court's tariff ruling. India's trade negotiators are postponing their planned 3-day meeting in Washington, D.C., aimed at firming up an interim trade deal with the US. Within hours of the U.S. Supreme Court's tariff ruling, Trump invoked Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 to first impose a 10% global import tariff before increasing that to 15%. The meeting will be rescheduled to a date that is convenient for both parties as they assess recent developments and their potential impact. India is currently subject to a 25% reciprocal tariff, which was scheduled to decrease to 18% following an interim agreement reached earlier this month, with provisions for further modifications. China is conducting a comprehensive evaluation of the US Supreme Court's decision on tariffs and has called on Washington to remove unilateral tariff measures imposed on its trading partners. The European Union considers the new 15% tariff a breach of its trade agreement with the US, which was set in July 2025 but remains unratified. Ratification was delayed after Trump threatened more levies on EU countries, rejecting his Greenland plan, and Tuesday's vote may be postponed again. The EU urged the US to honor their commitment, stating a deal is a deal. Many will be watching President Trump's State of the Union address that comes up tomorrow. Several Democratic Party leaders have chosen not to attend as a form of protest against various presidential initiatives. On Friday, the White House announced the launch of the Tech Core initiative within the Peace Corps aimed at advancing American artificial intelligence internationally and assisting partner nations in adopting innovative systems. The Peace Corps, an independent U.S. government agency, deploys American volunteers abroad to support development projects across education, health, agriculture, and economic growth. Under this new initiative, the agency will deliver comprehensive implementation support for American AI solutions with a focus on application-level deployment. These AI solutions are intended to address practical challenges in crucial sectors such as agriculture, education, health, and economic development. Volunteers will be assigned to countries participating in the American AI Exports Program, which was introduced in July according to an executive order issued by the Trump administration to strengthen U.S. leadership in advanced technologies worldwide. The Central Bank of the Democratic Republic of Congo will commence purchasing gold for its monetary reserves from a state-owned trading company, according to an announcement made on Friday. DRC Gold Trading SA is set to collaborate with the central bank to supply gold sourced from Congo's artisanal mining sites as the nation seeks to capitalize on its substantial reserves and rising market prices. Governor Andre Wameso, in a video message, said the central bank is committed to establishing itself as the principal buyer of gold produced by artisanal miners through DRC Gold Trading. Gold continues to benefit from increased uncertainty and geopolitical conflict. The precious metal closed at its highest weekly level ever, surpassing $5,100 on Friday. Ongoing concerns about trade wars and escalating tensions in the Middle East are encouraging investors to seek safety in gold. And still on African central banks, Nigeria's Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee is scheduled to meet today and tomorrow to determine its next steps on monetary levers. With January negative month-on-month headline and core inflation, as well as decline in food prices, a cautious return to easing could be considered. Asia-Pacific markets were mostly higher as markets faced fresh tariff uncertainty, which is expected to favor gold and safe haven trades. China and Japanese markets are also closed for the holiday. Well, that's it on this very special edition of Global Business Insights. This is Bode Oshosami. Please do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.